everyone. Welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. Find us on Spotify and the Facebook group, The Psychic Kitchen. Today we have Odysseus. I don't want to mess up your last name, brother.
Andrianos.
Andrianos. I didn't have everything up. Go ahead and shout yourself out, my friend.
All right, fair enough. So my name is Odysseus Andrianos, a.k.a. Obi-Wan Kenobi. I grew up in the film industry. My father actually worked on Star Wars, so he actually worked on Return of the Jedi. So that's where the name Obi-Wan Kenobi comes from. I've been very blessed in my life to be around world-class coaches since I was very young, with my dad working in Hollywood. That actually led to me getting into the fitness industry. Opened my own gym when I was 25 years old, ran that for 11 years, opened a second corporate gym on the side, and I was running a film studio until COVID shut me down. And that took me on this psychic or psychedelic journey into the self and understanding more about who I am, and led me to this place where I published my own book called Shadow Awakening. And now I created my own online healing academy called the Alchemy Healing Academy. And the work that I'm doing, it's really simple. It's all about teaching people how to heal themselves. I feel like the world is going through a dark night of the soul. It's actually the greatest opportunity for people to actually achieve self-actualization, self-realization. And I love your name of you guys' podcast, The Psychic Kitchen. I always tell people psyche means soul in Greek. So we're cooking up some soul energy to heal ourselves, to love ourselves, and show up more authentically for the people that we love. And I really feel that a lot of this work is really about just walking each other home. And I'm excited to share my journey with you guys today. And fire away with those questions, baby. Let's do this.
Well, it's great to have you, man. Do you want to share a little bit about kind of what your ethos is a bit more, and kind of exactly what you do at the Alchemy Healing Academy?
Well, what I always like to share is my origin story. I'll give you a shortened version of it. So, as I mentioned years ago, I was running a couple of gyms. I was living the fitness trainer's dream, making six figures, helping lots of people, making great money, and having lots of fun. But I had this lower back pain show up deep in my sacrum. We're talking like debilitating pain, like where I used to be able to like deadlift 500 pounds in my 20s. I got to the point where a doctor told me you can only lift 30 pounds. And that put me into a deep state of depression because, like, physiologically, I had this pain. I spent over $20,000 on Western medicine and nothing was working. And so that's what created my own mental health problems. I thought there was something wrong with me. And it wasn't until I got to this very dark space where I was like taking painkillers just to get through my day. Like I said, I was living the dream, but I was like masking all of it. And I realized through working with a shaman that I had a lot of suppressed emotional pain. And we can talk more about the journey into shadow work, but specifically for me, it was navigating my anger. As I got into my anger, I found my fear. And when I really got into my fear, I discovered my abandonment wound. And as I worked through that with this shaman and also got into quantum healing, I went through this magical healing journey that literally saved my life. And so that's what led me to what I'm doing today, which is teaching people how to do shadow work, teach people how to heal themselves in my Alchemy Healing Academy. And basically the school is just a one-stop shop where I provide all the tools that people need, from meditations, breath work, teachings of ancient Taoist philosophy, so people can learn the healing arts to heal themselves, heal the generational pain, and love themselves again authentically. And so I had to go through that dark night of the soul. I'd like to say I'm on the tail end of it. I hope I am. And my goal is to support more people who are going through that. And maybe Western medicine failed them too. And just let them know that they can get through it. But there is support out there. And be willing to reach out and find the right people, find your tribe, and find your community. So that's essentially what this is all about. We need more community, more tribe. I love technology, but it's like everyone's like overstimulated. So I'm trying to get more people to do meditation work, breath work, and just do the inner work that allows you to heal yourself. So that's what led me to this point. I had to go through that darkness, and now I'm sharing with people the story and the work they need to do to heal themselves and find that light within.
Awesome.
I think a lot of people right now, especially with these apps that are up now, they're looking for like instant, because I do like psychic mentorship and all kinds of stuff, but they're looking more for like instant gratification, not looking at what's actually causing them the problems. We were talking earlier about the subconscious and things of that nature. And it's a lot of people aren't really tapping into that. It's like, well, we want this spiritual ability. We want this spiritual ability. But if you don't start like grounding yourself and looking inward at what's happening and why your reality keeps repeating, how did that affect you on your journey?
Well, I mean, I love that you mentioned spiritual and grounding. I always tell people it's one of the first things that I teach. I do public speaking as well. If you look at the word spiritual, the root of the word is ritual, because it really comes down to your rituals. I love that, like I read this quote. I'm gonna probably butcher it, but spirituality without ritual is basically just philosophy. And it's great to have philosophy, but if you do not have rituals, and like you
Mm.
said, grounding yourself, a big issue with the spiritual community is everyone's trying to achieve this ascension, but that's not how it works. It's really about grounding yourself, getting into your body, feeling safe in your body, connecting with Mother Earth. And when you ground yourself, then you ascend. You know what I'm saying? People think it's all about this, like in Taoist philosophy, some people are into the yang, masculine, rising energy, but that's not where the healing occurs. It's really about growing the roots of the tree and going into the dark feminine space. It's like embodying that feminine, nurturing energy within yourself. So as you grow those roots, you really like sit with your pain and you honor it, you acknowledge it, and then the key word is to integrate it. That's when you start to really achieve a level of ascension. But it's actually the descent into the darkness, which is actually what really allows you that space to have an authentic healing journey.
Totally.
Did you, go ahead, Jimmy, sir.
Oh no, I was just going to say, actually, no, you go. I've forgotten what I was going to say.
Well, with the like the different shamanism, how did you find that?
I got it.
Man, it found me. Sometimes the universe, like I was running my gym and I started attracting shamans, healers, life coaches, and like it's just everything is energy, right? Everything is energy. I always tell people the word time backwards is emit, because it's really just energy. It's like you get your energy right. Time doesn't matter. You can live to be 100 years old and be miserable. You know what I'm saying? It's really about getting your energy right. And so basically I just started attracting shamans and healers, and like I was vulnerable and authentic, and I shared what was coming up for me. And that's what led me to this space where I was actually mentored by a Taoist shaman for over a year. And that like took because I was studying a lot, and I believe it's great to study, but there comes a point where you need an authentic coach or a mentor to really take your game to the next level. And so it just came to that point where the universe just showed up, showed me who I was, and I actually got called out. The shaman's like, well, you're doing fitness, but like you're really meant to be a healer. And my ego didn't like that. But the truth is, we're all our own healer. I'm just really gifted at teaching healing. That's really all what it's all about. And so that's the process of like, we're all our own shaman. We're all our own healer. Like we're all our own doctor. We just are convinced that everything is out here, when in truth, everything is within here, as within, so without. So as we begin to create those access points within ourselves, that actually creates this magnetic field where we begin to attract the people, the places, and the things that are an authentic mirror to who we're becoming. But that's where the introspection is so important. So in actuality, we're all our own shaman. So
yeah, I had a teacher for a couple of years, some lineage of Mayan shamanism. But yeah, it's interesting how, because whenever I don't hear a lot of people that have learned from different shamans, so I don't come across it a lot. But it's very interesting because it goes through so many subcultures.
Yeah, well, I feel like when we talk about shamanism, a lot of it's like the, people who we say are like schizophrenic or they have like ADHD, they really have gifts. Like our Western society tries to tell you that you have like a disability, but whenever we label a disability, it's actually a reflection of an ability. And like for me, I was labeled with ADHD. I grew up thinking I wasn't very intelligent, but I actually became a very successful entrepreneur because the system just didn't work for me in the way that my mind worked. Yeah. And so, as I mentioned, like we're all our own shaman, but it's really about getting the support that you need to go through those darker spaces within yourself. Shamanism really is about the integration of the dark feminine. And like one of my friends, she's a dark feminine coach. And it's because of that integration process and self-actualization process that we begin to truly heal ourselves and become complete. To heal means to make whole. So it's basically a harmony of yin and yang energy, darkness and light. And so when we become our own shaman, it's really about navigating that dark space. And sometimes that's not easy. That's why like hiring a coach or getting support. Like I worked with the Oriental Medical Doctor for a year to learn how to become a certified quantum healer. Because it's like study all you want, but there's like holes and gaps in your game. And when you get the right support, people can support you in figuring out where those holes are and filling them so you can show up as the greatest version of yourself. And that's really what this is all
about. Totally. And I kind of gather you're a big fan of words, etymology, what words mean, and breaking them down and being careful with your language. And something that just sort of popped into my head was that I noticed you used the word heal, whereas some people use the word cure, but that obviously cure also can mean to preserve. And so I try and avoid, although in some sense, I think it's about the intention, but at the same time, I feel like there is power behind words. Well, obviously, there's power behind words, but with cure, if you say you're going to cure something, you can also mean you're going to preserve it, which is why you sort of heal can be seen as, I don't know, not necessarily a better word, but a more representative and positive word to use rather than cure. But you mentioned ADHD, and I know you just before we came on, you spoke about calming the central nervous system. And a good friend of mine, also mentions about calming the nervous system, and that's kind of like the shall we say the gateway, the pathway to our psychic abilities, calming that and allowing the information to come through. So I wonder if you could just speak a little bit on sort of that calming of the central nervous system and what effect that can have, what beneficial effect that can have on our senses and our abilities and our healing process.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel that personally, I believe the future of health, healing, medicine is really going to come down to our emotions and our nervous system. Because the more this is where it relates to shadow work, where like the more you suppress, repress, and deny emotions, that's actually going to show up as physiological disease. Ancient Taoist doctors believe that the root cause of most physiological disease is suppressed emotions. And going back to your point about the nervous system, is the issues are in the tissues, and our nervous system will become highly dysregulated if we're suppressing that emotional pain. Yeah, the issues are in the tissues. It's a good one. But if you want to access your psychic abilities, I was teaching psychic abilities in my online academy in January. And your nervous system is dysregulated. Your nervous system is essentially your connection to the quantum field. So when you learn to calm yourself down, this is when you can actually begin to access your subconscious mind. So theta brainwave state, you get yourself into a calm meditative state using specific breath techniques, which activate the vagus nerve. So you can really, like, in terms of a healthy nervous system, you should be able to oscillate between fight or flight mode and rest and recovery. That's a healthy nervous system. But in today's society of overstimulation, our nervous system is constantly in fight or flight mode. In Taoist philosophy, it's excessive yang energy, right? That's the masculine energy. There's nothing wrong with masculine energy, but if you're constantly in the masculine energy, that's like fire. It's rising energy. We have to learn how to flip that and get into like that calming water element of the feminine. And that's what allows the nervous system to become calm, and then your body can heal itself. Because if your nervous system is dysregulated, no wonder you're not healing. I've been trying to explain this to people who are like going to doctors, going to therapists, and they're not getting results. It's like, is your doctor or therapist talking to you about your nervous system? Because if they're not, they're probably failing you. And it's not it's not up to them. It's really up to you taking the responsibility, the ability to respond and understand your ability to heal yourself through the nervous system. So specific breath exercises, visualizations can create that energy, that calming energy within yourself, because the body can heal itself when it's calm. If you're in fight or flight mode, not likely you're going to heal yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely not. And grounding, obviously, you mentioned that before.
Yes.
And grounding, I mean, I personally, I've grounded my bed, so I'll sleep for 7 or 8 hours a night or whatever, and I'll be connected to the earth for those 7 or 8 hours. And I certainly have noticed in the time that I've been doing it, which has been a few months, that I'm a lot calmer throughout everything, and the world seems a lot less chaotic. That's not to say that there's not chaos going on.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm not automatically responding and worrying and getting anxious and all of that kind of stuff. So you can observe more. Do you find that with sort of grounding, and do you recommend or what do you suggest? How much grounding do you think? 7 or 8? Can you do enough of it? Basically, that's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because honestly, the first thing that I teach anybody is grounding practice. So like in my online school, we do like I'm really good at teaching. Teaching is great, but teaching, like your masculine mind isn't where the healing occurs. It's about the embodiment. I'll say that again because it's so important. The embodiment. So I could sit here and teach people all kinds of great stuff, but the meditation practice, I'd say we got to meditate instead of medicate. Meditate instead of medicate, right? And specifically when it comes to grounding ourselves, right? The Taoist shaman who coached me, she told me that most people, their chi is up in their head, your life force energy, and it's spinning, it's going in circles. So the key point when we talk about grounding, it's about allowing. And that's a very important word, allowing, through this grounding process. And I'll share an exercise in a moment, to allow the chi to drop from the mind down into the body. And when that occurs, that's when your body is in a space where it can heal itself. So the first thing that I teach in my coaching program, and when we do meditations twice a week in my online school, we do what's called central channel breathing. It's an extremely simple exercise that I've learned from 2 different mentors who don't even know each other, teaching the same thing. So clearly it's really good stuff.
All right, cool.
Central channel breathing, extremely simple. I'll teach you it in 30 seconds. What you do is you sit in a calm place, you can lay down, you imagine inhaling into your belly, or what's called your lower dantian, the space just a few inches below your belly button. It's where your divine feminine is, into the belly. So inhale into the belly, then exhale down into the earth, imagining you're connecting with the earth. Then inhale from the earth back up into your belly, then you exhale up into the heavens. Inhale from the heavens back into the belly, then you exhale down into the earth. Inhale back into the belly, then exhale up into the heavens. It's called central breathing because you're at what's called Tai Chi pull. Tai Chi means yin and yang. So you're moving this energy up and down the central channel. And what this does is you're grounding yourself and connecting to your higher self at the same time. So you're connecting with the yang energy above, the yin energy below. And the key point here, when I teach this to people, is your mind, and actually Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this stuff too, is our mind is constantly focused on everything outside of ourselves. And this is what's causing so many people to go batshit insane. So when we learn to collapse our energetic field back into the central channel and we practice moving the energy up and down, the more you practice it, it actually begins to become subconscious. So you'll do it naturally instead of your mind focusing on your emails, your friends, your family, your social media, which is like none of that's bad. But if you're always focused on it, your nervous system can get dysregulated. So we learn to collapse our energy field back into our central channel, our Tai Chi pull, and move energy into the heavens, moving it down to the earth. And sometimes I'll just do the earth. I'll breathe into the earth, into my belly, breathe into the earth, and breathe into my belly. And that is a simple game-changing practice. I can't tell you, I've been coaching a CEO of a $100 million a year company for over 10 years. And it's like, she's had me teach breath work to her employees too, because it's a game changer. Because you learn to, instead of have your mind out here, you bring the energy back into your body. And when we do that, we feel a lot safer. There's a big, like another example years ago when I went through my own trauma is that I had a shaman. The shaman told me I was only 20% in my body. She said my auric field was like Swiss cheese. So I can speak to you. Like, I hated that. I was so pissed. I was like, shut up. My work field Swiss cheese. I was like, damn it. And so I can speak from experience. I went through it where trauma put me in a very dark space where I had to do like serious work to heal myself, to heal my auric field, to heal my biofield, and learn how to calm my nervous system down. So a lot of the stuff that I'm teaching is just things that I went through years ago, but it's a very powerful practice in terms of grounding yourself, central channel breathing. And like I said, it's the first thing I teach everybody. It's super simple. I got on a cardio machine and I'll just practice my central channel breathing.
Yeah, totally.
So do you look at it as chakras or is it just meridians or how do you see it?
Yeah, no, great question. So like I'm a certified quantum healer. So I do chakra clearing. I do distance sessions. I can do healing sessions with people anywhere in the world. But specifically when we talk about Taoist philosophy, like I'm actually teaching this later today in my online school, going over 5-element theory. But the roots of 5-element theory comes down to something called the 3 dantians. Have you guys ever heard of that?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't.
So the 3 dantians, when we do the central channel breathing, we're basically breathing into our jing, which is down here in the belly. We've got a cool shirt to represent the roots there, right? So we're breathing into the belly. That's our jing, okay? The chi is in the heart, and the shen is in the third eye. So the shen is fire. The jing is the water. The goal, I had like whole presentations explaining this. The goal is to harmonize the masculine shen and the feminine jing and bring them together. And like kind of like I have my yin and yang on right here, it's to create harmony within the body between that rising shen energy and the descending jing energy. And as you do that through the breath and the calming of the nervous system, this is what creates space where you become what's called a Taoist immortal. So like this is something you're going to do like within like a few sessions. This takes like 6 months to a year. And this is what I'm teaching in my Alchemy Healing Academy, how to harmonize this jing and this shen within us through our chi, through our breath, through our way of living, so that we won't get sick. And if you do get sick, you heal in a fraction of the time because the chi is moving in harmony. Now, the first step of that is, like I said, doing that central channel breathing and tuning into that lower dantian in the belly. I just like showing off my shirt. It's really what it is. Like most people, like I said, this is like so crucial. If anybody watching this takes one thing away from this, you have to learn how to get the chi out of your head. It is driving you nuts, and learn to train your body to allow the chi to drop into that divine feminine space in your belly. This is talked about in multiple alchemical practices. It's all in the belly. That's our cauldron, essentially our pelvic floor and our pelvic space is a bowl. And we want to strengthen that space so we can hold that Jing essence.
Mm.
That is what allows the ascent process. Remember, I said before, we must descend. You will not ascend until you descend first. This is emphasized over and over again in all the Taoist teachings. I can say years ago, I was trying to ascend. I didn't know what I was doing. That's a big problem in the spiritual community. So we have to learn to have an authentic practice to embody that divine feminine. And as you grow those roots, and sometimes you're like, nothing's happening. I've been meditating for weeks and nothing's changing. It's like because your soul grows the most when you're in dark places. And also, boom, everything starts to grow. You start attracting new people into your life. That's why getting the support through this process is so powerful. But the three Dantians, that's like absolute crucial wisdom to understand how to create this harmony. And back to your question about the chakras, you could say the Jing is your sacral chakra, the Qi is your heart chakra, and the Shen is your third eye. So that's totally related to the chakras as well.
Yeah, cool.
And sometimes even as vortexes, like
Yes.
3 vortexes in the body. Yeah.
Absolutely, because you have like when I do energy, like when I do chakra clearing, I test if there's like because the right side of the body is yang, the left side is yin. So I use a pendulum, I'm able to test where the chakra could be more yang energy or yin energy, or if it's completely closed. Because if it's closed, there's no energy coming in or out. So I do a clearing process that I learned from my mentor, and that allows that space, like you said, it's a vortex. So if the vortex is closed, why am I struggling with my emotions? Why am I struggling with my mental health? Well, there's a block there, and no amount of Western medicine will fix that. It's really about you doing the breath techniques and working with the different energetic locks. Like Mula Bandha is the root lock at the base of your spine. A lot of people are not grounded enough. I mean, years ago, I was not grounded. It took a lot of like just spending more time in nature and doing these breath techniques. But that's the real key, because when you're more grounded, you feel safer in your body. There's a lot of people in the spiritual community who don't feel safe. They're not grounded. You know what I mean? Like, what do I do? Like, I'm a victim. People get stuck in victim mode because of all the stuff happening in the world, and they're giving too much energy away to things they don't have control over instead of being grounded and then having more strength and power in things they do have control over. And I was one of those people too. So it's not like I'm just calling people out.
Yeah, totally. I think we've all been there. But we talked about victims a few weeks ago, actually. But something that I noticed when I was just doing a little bit of research on you and looking for your website was there was something called is it the Dzogchen? DZOGCHEN?
Say it again.
Dzogchen.
Dzogchen?
Yeah, DZOGCHEN.
Yes.
Yeah. Before you sort of can explain a little bit about that, if you will, I noticed that the symbol for that, and it just hit me, and I might be completely mad, but was RA upside down, and I didn't know if that was if that meant anything, because obviously Ra is sort of seen as a sun god. I didn't know if that had anything to do with it, but that's just you see these symbols, see this whatever, and I noticed that it was upside down. I don't know. Like I say, I don't know if it means anything, but if you, what actually is the Dzogchen, or whatever.
So Dzogchen, so like that, we're talking about some of the deeper stuff that I teach. So it's like essentially it's preparation for death. It's based upon the Tibetan book of living and dying. So like it's like, this isn't my opinion, just this stuff that I've like studied, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, is that all the healer does is support people and having more time to prepare for their death. So when I say that, right, is that the whole key here is to achieve what's called the rainbow body. So there's specific meditations called like the Dzogchen meditation or the Fowa meditation. And a lot of it is about, like, I actually practice this before I go to bed. So there's like a specific Fowa meditation where I work on forgiving myself for like the harm I may have caused other people, and being able to shed any layers of myself that are not authentic to who I truly am. So there's specific meditations. Like, you don't want to go into the afterlife and be like, oh crap, I'm dying. You know, like, you want to be in a very calm state. And so there's specific meditations that you can practice that actually prepare you for the afterlife, because you want to be in a very calming state. And so if you study the Tibetan book of living and dying, I actually have a section in my school about how to prepare for death, because we don't teach that, and people are like so terrified of death. And I feel like it's arguably the most important thing you could prepare for in this life. So like, I don't consider myself an expert at that, but I want to at least create the conversation with people so they can start to learn about it. Like years ago, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and I got really sad. I went through a very deep state of depression. My mother lost all her hair. She beat cancer, so she's good now. But I started studying death And I was like, why isn't any of this stuff taught in society? And so like I was studying the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and I have a presentation in my school. I have 2 presentations in my school teaching that, because this is wisdom that people should know. And it's like you go like into the afterlife and you're not prepared. It could be the biggest mistake of your life. And like I said, not that I consider myself an expert at that, but I want to create conversations about it so it's not so scary. And when you understand death from an Eastern perspective, it's not as scary. And you can go into, like, I remember I would like see my mom losing all her hair, and like I cried a lot. It was really a sad period of my life to see my mother going through that. But understanding death from a Tibetan perspective totally shifted everything for me. It made me feel a lot safer about having conversations with my mother on her healing journey too. So yeah, that's all. It's all about preparation for the afterlife. That's really why we're here, right?
Yeah, because that's one of the things that's on the free content on your website. I watched that presentation that you gave on the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and I thought it was really interesting because I hadn't heard that, but I hadn't thought about that before, about getting prepared for death, and that made a lot of sense. So I thought you presented it in a really cool way, and easy to understand, and you use the same font that I do for my website, so I like that as well. But there was something we spoke about it at the start about having a feeling of abandonment when you were younger, and I've noticed that it seems to me that the feeling of not being good enough is quite prevalent in society these days. Why do you think that is? Do you think is there a reason for that, and why everyone feels like they're not good enough? Because that's what it seems like, and I've struggled with that myself, and I'm sure many people have. But what are your thoughts on that particular aspect?
Yeah, well, I'd say a lot of that comes down to the programming of our society and like the marketing. Because if somebody can sell you on making you believe that you're not good enough and that this product is somehow going to magically change your life, that's what most of our society revolves around. Because it's like, I'm actually studying a lot of marketing right now, is I want to figure out how do I market healing to people, you know? And so I love teaching what I teach. Like, how do I convince somebody to like do this work so they don't get sick? You know, most people are not paying somebody until they actually have a problem. What if we address the problem before it showed up? But back to your point, is that a lot of marketing is disempowerment marketing. You're not good enough. Your clothes aren't good enough. Your clothes aren't good enough. Your boobs are too small. Your dick's too small. Your car's ugly. You're dumb. You're worthless. So it's all about selling you these limiting beliefs. So you begin to take them on. As I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, my dad worked in Hollywood. I grew up with my dad making Coca-Cola commercials. He filmed Desperate Housewives. So I grew up around all this stuff. And I remember being a little kid and like, why are they filming it like that? And it's really brainwashing people to make them feel like they're not good enough. But in reality, you know, it's just a limiting belief. And as we learn how to face those limiting beliefs and acknowledge that the center of the word belief is lie. It's literally a lie that you're addicted to. And all change happens at the identity level of our consciousness. And great marketing is going to make you identify with being not good enough so they can sell you a product. Now, that's the old way of marketing. For me, and the work that I'm doing is empowerment marketing. Essentially, when I sell what I'm doing, it's like the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. It's like, I'm Yoda and you guys are Luke Skywalker, and my healing academy is this lightsaber that I'm going to teach you how to use so you can conquer your demons, do your shadow work, and heal the generational pain that's been blocking you. So it's completely, because you are good enough. In fact, you're a wizard. And so that's my whole belief, and sharing that belief with people, which is an unlimiting belief where we have limitless potential. And so that's the shift. We're moving from like limiting beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, my feelings aren't valid, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, I'm dumb. And those are all operating below the surface in people's minds. And so a lot of the work that I do is helping them to identify those limiting beliefs so they can bring them to the surface, acknowledge them, integrate them, and then authentically move forwards in their lives and create the life they've always deserved.
Yeah, brilliant. And a big part of that is subconscious, and you've obviously got that chart, that drawing, which was and the subconscious and the unconscious. And I'll be honest, I wasn't necessarily sure what the subconscious and unconscious, whether they were even two separate things, but obviously they are, and it's just one's a bit deeper.
Yeah, I can share that real quick if you guys want.
Yeah.
So I'll show you. It's like, I always like to brag as a joke. These are my stick figure skills. So long story short, like I teach this in every speech that I do. Hopefully there's not too much glare, but basically it comes down to this. You're on this boat and you are consciously heading towards your goal. You want to lose weight, get in shape, find true love, maybe travel to an island destination. And you could be consciously on this boat heading towards your destination. Sorry for that glare. But what happens is the subconscious mind is just below the surface, and it's the current. So you could be rowing really hard, spending a lot of money, time, and energy to get to your goal. But if you have a subconscious limiting belief of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, my feelings aren't valid. Like imagine going out and trying to date and you have a story in your head that you're not good enough. It's going to be very difficult for you in your dating life. So the subconscious mind only works on images. That's why I show this picture to people so they can begin to identify what's your limiting belief. Now, what happens also, if you guys ever studied Alan Watts?
Yeah.
So Alan Watts said this. Many people, they're actually sitting on the back of the boat, identifying with their past, which is disappearing. Like your past is not like many people listening to this, you are identifying with your past, but you're not your past. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this too. So many people, they're sitting on the back of this boat, they're looking at their past and like, I am my past. Like, where's the boat going? If you're sitting there on the back of the boat. Now, when we get into the unconscious, not only are people sitting on the back of this boat, they've thrown an anchor deep into the water of the unconscious mind. Okay. And they've hooked that anchor onto this deep energetic frequency. It's not even logical at this point. That's the depth of the unconscious. So the difference between the subconscious and the unconscious, the subconscious mind is images. Okay. When we get into the unconscious, it's no longer logical. It's just deep, dense energy, but on a deep emotional frequency. So essentially what I do as a coach is help people identify where they could be anchored into an unconscious energy deep within their psyche, right? Remember, psyche means soul. And what subconscious story or image are they holding on to? As we remove those anchors from the unconscious mind and shift the story that we have in the subconscious mind, now you start moving towards your goals with a fraction of the effort. Now, I always tell people masculine energy is electric and feminine energy is magnetic. So when you get into this dark feminine space and you work on releasing these anchors you have, then the water, it becomes magnetic and it begins to actually draw you to your goals with a fraction of the effort. I'm making this sound really simple because it is when you get support and understand how your mind works. So that's essentially what I'm doing is explain to people these different levels. Now, here's the goal too. As you work with the subconscious and you begin to work with the unconscious, this is what we're talking about, psychic abilities. When you start to remove these unconscious anchors and shift the images of the subconscious mind, then I don't have it written on here, you can actually tap into super consciousness. That will not happen until you have done your shadow work, until you've shifted those subconscious beliefs. But when you do that, that's when you access super consciousness, and it's like a wise old man watching a child play because you've done the work and now your goals are happening with a fraction of the effort. This is what I teach in my school and my academy and my book, because once you begin to create those access points into the unconscious mind and shift the stories within the subconscious mind, your life becomes so ridiculously easy. I'll give you guys an example. Like, what is he talking about? So like years ago, I was running my own gym. I wanted to open a second gym. I was trying so hard right up here in the conscious world to open a second gym. It took me 6-7 years. Why? Like, just driving me. I can't open a second gym. And then you know what I did? I did nothing. I started meditating. I did nothing. I did not use any masculine energy. I embodied the feminine. I started meditating 45 minutes a day. What I did with my mind, I shut up. I shut up. I got into my body and I started to figure out what the blocks were within myself. And all of a sudden, one of my clients came to me and said, Odie, do you want to open another gym? I'll pay you to build the gym and I'll give you clients. And I doubled my income. You know what I did, guys? I did nothing because your mind wants, I have to do stuff. I have to do stuff. And like, learn to calm down. All the answers are in your body, but you're in your head so much in your masculine yang energy that you won't shut up and actually listen to your body. I'm making this funny, right? So I had to go through it too. And I was like, wow, that was so much easier. All I did was calm down. And then the money and the wealth and like opening a second gym just happened. The problem, they're in their heads like, I'm going to figure it out. It already is figured out. It's in your body, bro. So I'm trying to make this funny, but like, that's really what it is. It's about calming that nervous system down, doing nothing. It's so counterintuitive. Like, I have to be busy all the time and make more money. It's like, maybe you need to make less money, calm down, and then the more money will show up for you effortlessly because you harmonize your nervous system.
It reminds me of, totally. It reminds me of a clip that I saw with Bashar the other day, and the question to him was, the woman, whoever said, how do I listen to, or how do I hear my higher mind or whatever? And he just basically said, shut up. And
Yes.
and that's that's just what you were saying. It's just, that's how you do it. You just be quiet, learn to listen, sort of things.
Have
Well,
you seen like The Untethered Soul? Have you read that book, The Untethered Soul?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, where he's just in the van, just meditating for days and days, and everything starts showing up. He's like, I don't know how this is happening, but it's happening.
Because you're accessing the quantum field. You cannot. It's like it's particles versus waves. When you are addicted, it's like when people get addicted to an outcome, right? You're creating your own suffering because of the attachment to an outcome. But when you surrender your mind and move from a particle to a wave, right? It's kind of like this. It's like everything's very dense, and you understand the wave-like nature, and you surrender. Then the field opens up. But if you're clinging, everything is very dense. So it's more like a particle, and things are, like I said, they're very dense. So when you learn, this is why it's counterintuitive. Your logical, masculine, yang energy mind wants to keep busy and doing things like, we're doing all this stuff. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's going to work. It's like, but it's not. And so when you learn to calm down, the field actually opens up for limitless possibility. And it's scary because that's the divine feminine. Like you said, it's listening. If you study the Tibetan Book of Dead, it talks about the bardos of the afterlife have to do with listening. There's extreme power, and listening is a feminine trait because you're receiving. And if you learn how to flip that, not just listening externally, but deep listening internally, your body has a message for you. You're not going to hear that message when you're in your logical, masculine, yang energy mind. There's nothing wrong with masculine, yang, logical energy, but if you're constantly there, you can't hear the whispers of your soul. Psyche means soul in Greek. And you guys, when I'm sharing this, you guys, I still struggle with this. Like I'm teaching it, and I'm like, shut up, ground yourself, meditate, go sit in the woods, like whatever it is. Like I'm still working on this too. So like I'm great at teaching it. Even my mentor, like, Odie, you're a genius at teaching this, but you still need to embody it too. So it's like I'm still working on it too, you guys. So I just love it because I love seeing. For me, my favorite part about coaching is there's this word in Japanese called satori. It means sudden awakening. So I love that look when like the shen or the light comes on in people's eyes and they realize they have the power to heal themselves. That to me is priceless. So that's why I love teaching all this beautiful ancient wisdom.
Totally, and it's just about awareness as well, isn't it? It's kind of, we've gone through a lot of our lives, or most of us have, not necessarily being aware of the words that are coming out of our mouth and what we're sort of manifesting, so to speak, and telling ourselves that we can't do this, or this is definitely going to happen, and I've always got loads of bad luck, and blah blah blah. And the first part, at least it was for me, was being aware of the words that you say, and then you start to become aware of what other people are saying. You become aware of the words that they're using, and you notice it straight away, and you think you're continuing the mental torture, if you like, or the suffering from your own words, and I'm a big fan of Occam's razor, which obviously basically the simplest explanation is the best, and because most people can understand that. And that's not to say that complicated stuff isn't good, but I like simple and everything. And so because you said about trying to do things as simply as possible, and I think that's probably the best way, because then we can all grasp it, and we can all help each other, and we don't have to have a degree in whatever to understand everything. But there was something you mentioned about emotions, and how we have them trapped inside us, and how do you find is the best way to get them out? Do you feel it's necessary to force them out, or do you just allow them to come out when they're necessary? So if someone isn't necessarily very emotional and they don't show emotion, how would you kind of approach them or deal with that? Would you just let them be, or I don't know, how would you approach that?
So that is relative to the person. So like when I work with somebody, I figure out whether they need yang energy or yin energy. And often it's a combination of the two. Now, when I say yang energy, My background is in fitness, so I did a lot of work teaching people how to exercise. So the yang energy is movement. The yin energy is sitting with it. Now, in general, more people need to sit with their stuff. So the yin energy is that feminine, just sitting with their stuff, because oftentimes we're so busy, it's like water that's moving, you can't see below the surface, kind of coming back to my analogy. But when we actually sit with things and allow the water to become calm, I would say, like, if you're in a stressful situation, just calm down, allow the muddy water to settle. So as the muddy water settles, there becomes more clarity. And that happens within the body as well. So when we talk about emotions being trapped in the body, there's different things that people need for different emotions. So sometimes we need to move that energy to get it out. Sometimes we have to sit with that energy. And that's where I wouldn't say it's one-stop shop for every single person. You have to figure out where people are at and what their specific needs are. And like having 20,000 hours of experience, I'm able to tune into people and deeply listen to figure out what their needs are. But in general, most of society needs to take some time to slow down and sit with their emotional pain. I work mostly with women, but I work with some men. And when I get them to finally do some breath work and get out of their head and drop into their body, they just start weeping. They finally cry some of those tears they've been suppressing for years. And that is magical, because the tears are just energy. You're just holding on to this emotional pain, and you finally get some of that out. And instead of you getting physiological disease, you're allowing yourself to feel that stuff. And so, like in America, the leading killer is heart disease, because we're not connected to our hearts enough. And so another thing I want to mention, and I love that you mentioned that you said, was awareness, because the first step to this journey is awareness. The last step of this journey is awareness, but it's a higher level of awareness. Kind of like I mentioned in that analogy with the boat, you start to have this super consciousness because you've moved into a connection with your higher self, but that only worked because you became so grounded. So you have to ground yourself. And as you ground yourself, you're able to operate from a higher perception of self. But it all comes down to awareness. So I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah, totally. And I saw, I mean, you can't believe everything you read. Obviously, you probably can't believe necessarily anything you read at the moment. But that I read something the other day, or saw something that said that there is brain tissue in the heart and also in the gut, which it kind of explains a lot as far as, you know, mental issues and people who have who don't necessarily eat things that are conducive to their body, for health and nutrition to their body. If their gut is messed up, then sometimes it can sort of translate to them having issues mentally. And the same with the heart, I suppose. If we don't think with our heart and use the brain tissue that is there, then obviously that can cause an issue, and it can lead us to be in the head all the time. And obviously with the I don't know how that relates to cholesterol, because obviously apparently the brain is, majority of it is cholesterol, and yet everyone's on cholesterol-free diets, and you know that might explain why no one's thinking with their heart, and you know, or whatever. But I don't know. But yeah, I found it interesting about how the tissues is replicated in different parts of the body.
Yeah, well, I mean, what you just said, it kind of relates to what I said before about the three Dantians. It's about your gut, your heart, and your brain. And it's just like the West just explains it differently. Like when I teach in my school, I tell people I'm teaching the same thing over and over and over again in different ways, because every culture is saying the same thing in a different way. But the key thing is, like, when you talk about like your heart brain, if you guys have heard of the Heart Math Institute, I've said Dr. Joe Dispenza a couple times.
Oh yeah,
Heart Math Institute. You talk about the gut health. I have my degree is in kinesiology with an emphasis in nutrition. So I've helped people lose thousands of pounds. When we talk about gut health, it actually comes down to what's called the mesentery system. So it's essentially a battery in our gut. And that's why my first step with coaching anybody is getting them to tune into that gut space, those lower chakras, because oftentimes most people, their upper chakras are doing great, but if those lower chakras that are very out of balance and they're not grounded. And so a lot of the work that I'm teaching people is how to get back into the body, because the body already knows. It's like, it comes back to, like I said, allowing that chi, like you said it yourself, allowing that to drop. And it's like, you're not going to do like 2 meditation sessions and that's going to happen. Some people, it may take like 2 to 3 months. That's why in my school, like I have it set up where like I'm teaching stuff, but the most important part is the embodiment. We're doing meditations. Because if you meditate, you won't have to medicate, like I was saying earlier. So if we get people to do the work, and it's funny because doing the work means actually doing less and learning to be in your body more. When you're in your body more, that's when all the shifts occur, because you've harmonized your nervous system, your mesentery system gets stronger, and essentially your gut is this battery that feeds your entire life. And when your gut health is poor, your mental health is going to be poor, and it all comes back to the heart as well, and being able to tune into that heart space and operate from your highest self, because you've tuned into those above and below energies.
Now, when you were suffering with all this pain and you went through this process, like what happened? Like the pain went away? Like I'm wondering about this.
Yeah, man, I was in a lot of pain. Like as I was saying earlier, I would wake up in the morning. I had like my sacrum was out of alignment, and I would take a painkiller just to get through my day. And I'm super against pharmaceuticals, but I was in that much pain that I had to do it. And like eventually I was taking just Advil, but I still don't like taking Advil. And so there just came a point where like I did quantum healing. Like I said, I worked with the shaman to identify what's going on emotionally. And then I did quantum healing to work with my lower chakras. Like my sacral chakra was out, my root chakra was completely closed. And so working with the energetic body, and this is ancient wisdom that they're just starting to reintroduce into Western medicine. And when I was able to go through that process of clearing the emotional frequencies of the stagnant chi within my body, then like my hips just like opened up. It literally took me like 3, maybe like 5 sessions working with my mentor. And after those 5 sessions, I was like, I want to learn more of this. I did a year-long program learning how to teach it to other people. So I'm, like I said, I'm a certified quantum healer, and anybody can learn how to do this stuff. So I'm like doing my best to, that's where I'm like learning marketing. Like marketing's super boring to me, but I'm like, if I can teach more people how to do this work, then they can heal themselves and save themselves thousands of dollars in the depression that I went through with struggling with Western medicine, because I'm not healing. Like literally it was an extremely tough period of my life, but I'm grateful I went through it, because I can authentically talk about my healing journey and my dark night of the soul journey, so I can support other people, because it's not easy. But when you do the work, and like I said, doing the work means actually slowing down, which is actually very good for people, then your body can heal itself. And that's what this is all about.
I like the phrase "less is more." That sort of seems to come up a lot in certain things, especially. I mean, do music in a band and stuff like that. And sometimes you don't have to play at 1,000,000 miles per hour and play 1 trillion notes a second. You just a nice few notes in the right place will do the trick. But I question how, like emotions wise, do you think that someone is always going to feel emotion regardless, or does it get to a point where, I mean, are they ever going to be healed enough not to have any emotion, or is emotion just sort of part of the human condition, insofar as we're always going to feel it, and it's just how you deal with it when they come up, and you don't necessarily let it sort of influence your reaction. You can react, or you don't have to react, but you can still feel that emotion.
Okay. Well, so one of the things that I teach, and this is actually in my book as well, is there's a process with neuro-linguistic programming. And so NLP, I don't know if you guys have studied that at all, but it's a great tool for people to like it's like Jedi mind tricks that you can use to kind of reprogram the brain and how it's showing up in the body. So what happens is this, like I said, this is in my book. The key thing is slowing down, okay? Because what happens is people get triggered, or there's some kind of stimulus. That trigger, we create a meaning. I'm not good enough, right? Like the money doesn't grow on trees. That meaning creates an emotion. That emotion creates a hormonal response, creating a behavior. And that behavior can often lead to another trigger, and then another meaning, emotion, behavior, trigger, meaning, emotion, behavior, trigger, meaning, emotion, behavior. So oftentimes when people are too much in their yang energy, they're triggered, they go right back to the same emotion and the same behavior. They never took the time to examine the meaning. So when we talk about that like a trigger's like a gun. When we slow down to discover the meaning, it's like taking that gun and unloading it and looking at the ammunition. Because then as we change the meaning from I'm not good enough or I'm not worthy of love to I am good enough, I am worthy of love. And as we change the meaning, then the emotions shift. And as the emotions shift, the behaviors shift. So that's a key point when we do the meditation practice, we do the breathwork practice. It allows us to slow down enough to actually catch that meaning before we go, I've been triggered. I'm not worthy of love. I'm going to go eat ice cream and sabotage my diet. And then I'm stuck and I have diabetes and all this shit. So like I keep saying the same thing, you guys. It's all about slowing down. With our hyper yang, hyper stimulated society, I'm just out here trying to teach meditation to as many people as possible, because more than ever, But that's the key thing. Is like when we say to heal emotions, to heal, as I mentioned, means to make whole. If you go to the roots of to make whole, it actually means to make holy. So it's like your religion is your healing journey. People are like, I'm not anything against religion, but like your true religion is this the temple that is your body and creating harmony within your nervous system. Because when you have that, everything is magical. That's the real magic is within each and every single one of us. And that's where you can tap into psychic abilities too. You're not going to tap into that when you're too overstressed and overstimulated.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people see psychic ability as the prize or the goal, but the actual prize and the goal is healing yourself. And the psychic ability is sort of the consequence or the bonus, shall we say, from the healing.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, like the key thing is I always tell people, like as I mentioned earlier, about the root of the word spiritual is ritual. And your rituals create your riches. And I have a number of books that I basically in my school, I just take some of the best books and I just compile all the information and just make it really easy for people to learn. Because most people aren't reading books enough these days. I'm like a super nerd. I love reading and I love teaching. It's just like so rich when you see people realize, like, wow, I can heal myself. I get high on that. Talk about specifically like psychic abilities. There's this one book that my mentor actually gave me, and I highly recommend it if you want to learn more about psychic abilities, called Psychic Energy. It's actually no longer in print. You see all the stuff in here, and this is one I created presentations in my school teaching this. I actually have a presentation teaching psychic self-defense too, because you can get psychically attacked. When we talk about psychic energy, it really comes down to two things: the breath, learning how to control the breath because you're controlling your chi. And number two is controlling the mind. So there's specific breath exercises and visualization techniques that you can do over time. And like the key thing is the more you do that, the more embodied you become. The more embodied you come, the more you access those psychic abilities. There's a whole process in that book, and I'm teaching some of that stuff in my academy so you can access that potential. And remember, psyche just means soul. So psychic abilities is just soul abilities. Like people act like psychic abilities, that's only on TV. It's like when you really fully bring your soul into your body. And they talk about this in the East. You have what's called cities. Cities are actually superpowers associated with each of the chakras. But if your chakras are out of balance, why would you be able to access those abilities? The people that rule the world, they don't want us accessing these potential. They want us to shut our mouths, get back to work, take your drug, be unconscious, and basically be slaves. But that's not what the future is for humanity. We're here to wake up and become the greatest version of ourselves. So that's why I'm so passionate about teaching this stuff, because the more people we teach how to do this stuff, we can heal ourselves and put some of these pharmaceutical companies out of business because we don't need their drugs anymore. You know what I mean? We're all psychic. We're all tuning into the quantum field and communicating with each other. So that's a lot of the stuff that I just love teaching people.
Yeah, totally.
How do you explain the dark feminine? I'm interested to get your take on that.
So the dark feminine to me, so like I have a friend, she teaches the dark feminine. We talk about shadow work. So it's essentially like, as I mentioned, the roots of a tree. It's like when you're going through the darkest spaces within your life, that's usually when you're growing the most. Your ego can't always see it. So when we talk about the dark feminine, there's a concept in Taoist philosophy called, I believe it's Kunlun Mountain. So this mountain, the earth is the center space. The masculine energies is wood element and the fire element. That's above the surface, okay? Below the surface, the dark feminine is the metal element and the water element. So if you really want to rise up this mountain to achieve this peak consciousness or performance, you don't start climbing the mountain. You actually go down into the metal element. That's where the gold is found, right? Related very much to alchemy, right? And we go even deeper with the metal into the dark feminine, which is the water aspect. So the more we're actually deep in that water space, our egoic mind's like, nothing's happening. But that's where in Taoist philosophy, the key, the chi is cooking deep in the space, okay? Because we're drawing that masculine energy down into the feminine. We're drawing that fire element down into the water. As you begin to work with that energy, start to work with that dark feminine, that's when we become our own healer. The masculine energy is the warrior. The feminine energy is the healer. We want to be able to couple those two within ourselves. And the more we embody that water element, we begin to access what's called flow state, otherwise known as Wu Wei. And when we're in that space, it's the art of non-doing. Like you're literally like effortlessly, money shows up for you, people show up for you. Like things start changing because you slowed down and you embodied that dark feminine space. Like even it says in some of the stuff I'm teaching right now in my school, it's in this place where it's like, it's terrifying. because you have no other choice but to surrender. That's the dark feminine. It's so powerful. You're like, what do I do? How am I going to get out of this? And it's like, that's the part where like I love helping people because they may not know how to navigate that space. That's what I created the book on shadow work. Because in that dark feminine space, like you don't know what's happening, but it's like you're like out at sea and you're in the waters, and then all of a sudden like you pass out and you wake up on this beautiful beach, but you just had to completely surrender. And it's terrifying. That's why people run away from the dark feminine, but it's actually a superpower when we're actually that's the hardest part is surrender, being vulnerable. How many people struggle with being able to surrender and be vulnerable? But that's the essence of the dark feminine, because when you surrender and you're vulnerable, that's when we start to open up to the quantum field and the roots grow, and then we become the masculine because we embody the feminine. And that's the part that people are like, that doesn't make sense. It's like we have to go into that dark spaces. I always say stars don't shine without darkness. But if you keep going towards the stars, you actually really need to embody that darkness, and that's where the stars will shine within yourself, and that's the essence of alchemy.
Yeah, totally. How do you find that? How do you find that the Taoist principles or the way of life, etc.? How do you find that I don't know compares to? Do you see any of the aspects of Taoist and Taoist and that in sort of Western society? Do you feel like any of it has been transposed, or just has it just been completely twisted around on its head and misinterpreted?
Well, the thing with Taoism, when I explain it to people, it's essentially a return to nature. And like you said yourself, it's the way. That's what we talk about, like the Tao Te Ching is the way of virtue. So if you live a virtuous life, you're naturally going to have riches. And so when we talk about like the Western society and whatnot, the Western society is constantly about doing. The Taoist nature is about being. And so when we start to shift from doing to being, we actually start to work with this embodiment. Okay. And as we start to do that embodiment practice, the Tao is essentially the way, like I said, of virtue. We live this virtuous life internally, then we naturally are tapping into the quantum field. Like you study ancient mysticism, that's where a lot of these roots come down to. It's essentially walking the middle way path. It's that line between the yin and the yang. You're able to see the darkness, you're able to see the light, and you're able to transpose and move through those different energies and live with far less effort, because you're conscious and not falling into the darkness or falling into the light. Because even if your life is going really good, too much joy, that's too much fire energy. Right. So you have to be able to, and you could also, there could be too much yin energy too, where you're sitting too much and not doing anything. So like, as I mentioned, most people are too much in the yang energy. So you got to sit with your stuff, but it's really about being able to balance this masculine and feminine, this fire and water, this yin and this yang energy in your day-to-day life. And that's the essence of Taoism. When you're fully conscious, I'll say that again, fully conscious of how this darkness and light is moving through your day-to-day life, because most people, they're over identifying with an aspect of themselves, and that's keeping them stuck because there's an imbalance of yin and yang energy. So as we move through this journey of understanding the Taoist philosophy, we're able to move into the space where we're living harmoniously with who we were always meant to be, because we move through any impediments or blocks we have, bridging the gap from who we are now to who we're always meant to be. And like I said, a lot of it has to do with slowing down enough to listen to the whispers of our body, to listen to the whispers of the dark feminine, because oftentimes your logical mind is distracting you from what you really need to do or what you need to know. And that gnosis is always within us. And that's the part where we need to honor and embody that dark feminine within us, because then we can truly authentically heal.
I like that.
It's interesting. I worked with an acupuncturist in Savannah. She does divergent channels. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. But
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and she's an exorcist, but she like shifts people entire lives. And she was like, Thomas, your fire energy is off the charts. She's like, but your wood and your metal element, she's like, dear God. She's like, it's not balanced here at all. She's like, you're like kaboom. But it shifted me a lot working with her. Eventually I had to part ways, but it shifted me a lot, because this divergent channel stuff, which I don't totally understand, and I don't think there's many people that even teach that. But she was like, you have to understand, because what people would do when they worked with her just really fast is that they would eventually break. And I wouldn't break. I would keep coming back. But she would she's like, you have to understand. And she would show her like hand and her arm. She's like, I do this to myself every day. She's like, I have to, in order to master this, I have to master it on myself.
Yeah. It's very true. Well, I mean, the thing I love about five element theory, and I love what we're talking about, because this is actually what I'm teaching this month in my online academy, is that like I just love showing off my art to you guys. We have like the five element theory. I'm just a in the closet artist. So like we have like each element moves like this, and then there's an internal aspect. So like the whole goal is like I could sit like I have 5 presentations teaching five element theory. The whole goal is like you said, like you could have too much fire energy, and that fire energy could be burning out the water elements, and vice versa. Like you could have too much water and it's putting out the fire too. So like as I mentioned, like the earth element is the foundation. The wood and the fire are rising elements, and the metal and the water are descending elements. And the five elements also are associated with what's called the 5 seasons in Chinese medicine. And the whole goal is to live harmoniously with these seasons. Most people, they're spending too much time in that fire energy, doing. Like right now, we're moving into spring. So now is the time to actually rise and begin to manifest things versus the last few months we've been in the winter season. It's not about being busy, right? It's really about being calm and creating introspection. And I feel like that's a big part of it is like not enough people are taking the time to slow down. As I mentioned years ago, that was me. I was running 2 gyms, running a film studio, making 6 figures, helping all those people. On the surface, everything's great, but there was something deep within me that I wasn't listening to. And so that's the part where I had to actually face that stuff. And that's not always easy because our society is constantly pushing you to be in that yang energy. I also call it the peacock feather energy. You're like showing off even women are in their mask and trying to show off their booties and attract lots of people. And don't get me wrong, I love beautiful women, but if like you're constantly using yang energy, you're not embodying the feminine, right? And so that's where the real powers are. And that's why I keep on trying to sell people on the power of this dark feminine energy. And when you embody it, it's magical because that's where, for me, it's about magnetic energy. When I'm embodying the dark feminine, things are drawn to me. If I'm in that masculine, I'm reaching for things, and I'm actually pushing things away. If I'm fully safe and present, and my nervous system is calm, people, things, places, they're just drawn to me, and it's less effort. You get what I'm saying? And that comes back to the 5 elements. Where are you in balance within the 5 elements? Your yin and yang energy, or your 3 Dantians, right? That's why I love teaching this stuff because it's like if everybody knew what I was teaching, pharmaceutical companies would go out of business. A lot of like doctors, like there's doctors who graduate bottom of their class. They should not be practicing medicine. You know what I'm saying? Learn like I believe there's amazing doctors, there's amazing therapists out there, but they're overwhelmed. There's too many people suffering. So my whole vision is if we can teach people how to do this preventative care, we can save billions of dollars, but more importantly, we're authentically able to love ourselves and live longer and happier, have a better sex life. I want to have great sex when I'm in my 80s, bro. That's what it is. Sex life. Because like, I mean, I have friends who are sex coaches, and they tell me most people, they're not in their body, so their sex life sucks. So if you get back into that lower Dantian, just showing off my shirt, and you get down into your body, every aspect of your life improves. And a lot of it comes down to the breath. Extremely powerful.
Do you is there do you find that there's I think there's specific breath work for say calming, falling asleep. I've seen techniques or ones to help people fall asleep, say if they're overthinking and they're anxious. Is there one particular, I mean, I know it probably depends on the person, but is there a quick breath exercise that you could share that can help someone immediately calm, other than the sort of the connecting one that you shared earlier?
Well, I always have people start with the central channel breathing because the first step is learning to breathe into that lower Dantian. But then there's a wide array of other exercises. Specifically, like I have breath techniques where it's more yin energy, calming down. Then I have other breath techniques that are more yang energy, that you're moving energy, faster breathing. Now the issue is, this is why I always am careful with who I teach. If I give somebody a yang breathing exercise where they're breathing fast, it will actually trigger them. It can actually bring their trauma up to the surface too quickly. That's why like it's important to work with an experienced coach or practitioner, you know? And so like my ability to know from 20,000 hours of experience, like, do I give this person yang energy or do I give them yin energy? And so at different times you want to be able to pendulate between those two energies, right? So it just depends on the person. So somebody who needs more of that yang energy, they may want to move a little faster breathing. Then other people would be slower breathing, like box breathing. So there's like Wim Hof techniques where I would consider to be more yang. And then there's more box breathing where it's like slow inhale, long, slow exhale, long, slow inhale. But it all comes back to this one primary concept that I mentioned before, allowing the chi to drop from the mind down into the body. And you're using your breath And like when we talk about 5 element theory, your breath, the lungs are associated with the metal element, and the metal element is associated with alchemy. Even the shaman told me the first element she works with anybody is the metal element, because your lungs are your direct connection from the external and internal world. So as you're bringing fresh chi in, you learn to release stagnant chi from the body. So that's the first thing we do, is working with the breath. I've been a breathwork coach for years, and I always tell people the first and last thing you have in life is your breath. So it's the most important thing that you can focus on. But coming back to your question, it's really dependent upon the individual. And so in my academy, I have different recordings, and I tell people to go to different sections of my website or my academy, depending upon what their needs are. So like yang energy or yin energy. So it's just really relative, but the whole key is dropping that chi into the body so we can create that healing space.
Okay, cool. Do you find that does it matter whether I suppose it depends on the technique, whether you breathe through the nose or whether you breathe through the mouth, and how the rate of breathing, because I've seen stuff online that says you can simulate or stimulate your pineal gland to produce dimethyltryptamine, and I think, well, that sounds good. Have you had an experience with that? Is that true that you can do that?
Yeah. Totally. Well, it's holotropic breathing, and holotropic means to make whole. So there's specific breathing exercises. A lot of this is like the Wim Hof type stuff, which I've taught over the years with my breathing technique. But the whole key is like working with like the lungs are associated with the emotion of grief. And so when you're like you're sad, you actually experience it in the lungs. Like with the Chinese medicine, your kidneys carry fear, this is your adrenal glands, right? And so like your stomach has to do with anxiety. But like a lot of people, they're carrying all this grief in their lungs. So when we do these specific exercises, it helps to like bring in that fresh chi, clear out the stagnant chi. And as we do that, that's where people will have like an emotional breakdown, where like that stagnant energy, they finally release it. And that creates the space for them to finally cry tears. Like I mentioned to you guys, my mother had cancer years ago, and that's around the time where I actually learned breath work. And I learned from these advanced breath work practitioners. I remember I was sitting on this beach in Mexico learning breath techniques, and like I started doing it, and it got me out of my mind and in my body. I was weeping like a little boy, just like, because I thinking about my mom and her being sick, and then I just kept crying and crying, and I found all these other emotions that I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And it was honestly one of the most healing experiences of my life. So it's like, I always say, it's like what you call negative emotions. It's actually like this one book, I teach Chinese face reading too. And in the book, my favorite quote, it says, "There's no such thing as a good or a bad emotion. There's only stuck emotions." And so when we learn to bring that fresh chi into the body, then like metal has to do with alchemy, right? I would say in alchemy, you turn what is metal into gold and what is mental into gold. So we're using the breath as a catalyst to move that stagnant chi. And that's what creates access points, because sometimes like you move that chi and then all of a sudden your body opens up and your mind and body connect. It's like, oh, there's that deep wound of abandonment that I needed to feel. And you can cry deeper, and you finally get that space. So like I said, you create that access point, and that can be the most healing experience for so many people. And like I say, it's different for each person. You know what I'm saying? Like one size fits all. Like that's not how this works. You know, we just like, that's for me. Like when I built my academy, my goal is with my school to have a one-stop shop that has just a wide array of tools that people can come up to, and they can pick what they need for their healing journey, and just having lots of beautiful lectures that teach all these different healing arts, because the world's so ripe for change right now. It's ridiculous. You know what I mean?
It's perfect, isn't it? Perfect for it. Got a question, because you mentioned balance and good and bad, and it made me wonder. It may sound like a silly question, but can you have too much good?
Yeah.
And because if everything's balanced, then, because you see people who do a lot of good and always doing good, and yet sometimes they're unhappy, and you think, well, whether you're doing, I mean, the same like for people who do a lot of bad, you know, whatever good and bad is, you know, right and wrong, all of that stuff. But if it's about balance, then if you go too far one way, then something is going to bring you back into the middle. And so it's about balance. And so you can like when people say there's no good and bad, and you can kind of see it in that context. But I find that when, like, even if someone's intention is to just do good all the time, they're still out of balance, aren't they?
Yes.
And but that seems, because if you're a genuine person, you genuinely want to help people, then doing too much good seems preposterous in a way, doesn't it? You know what I mean? But like you say, it's about balance, and it's just finding that. And got any tips on how to find balance?
Yeah, no, totally. So like you made me think of, have you ever heard of the story of the Chinese farmer?
Yes, I saw. I think. Tell it again. I think I know the one you're talking about. That was that was one of the first ones that I saw, and I thought that's brilliant, and that gave me a whole new perspective.
Yeah, so I can tell it really quickly, because like you said, good and bad, and like it's like I do my best to shift people from good and bad to yin and yang, because you can, like, the goal is to, like, it's not bad to be depressed. It's just like something that needs to be acknowledged, right? It's like your depression is your body and your mind trying to tell you need to make a shift. You can also be like have too much joy, where it's too much fire energy, right? But the story of the Chinese farmer, and I always like to say that Shakespeare once said, nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And the story of the Chinese farmer is in my book. So short story, take me about a minute. So once upon a time, there was this Chinese farmer, and this farmer had a horse who ran away. And the people of the town came to the Chinese farmer and said, oh my God, that's so bad that your horse ran away. The next day, the horse came back and brought 3 wild horses with him. And so the people of the town came to the Chinese farmer and said, oh my God, that's so good that your horse came back and brought these 3 wild horses with them. And the Chinese farmer said, maybe. On the third day, the Chinese farmer's son went to go tame one of the wild horses, and he fell and broke his leg. So the people of the town came to the Chinese farmer and said, oh my God, that's so bad that your son fell and broke his leg. And the Chinese farmer said, maybe. On the final day, the military came to take the Chinese farmer's son to go to war, but he'd fallen and broken his leg. So the people of the town came to the Chinese farmer and said, oh my God, that's so good that your son fell and broke his leg. And what did he say? Maybe.
Maybe.
What I like to say is the Chinese farmer was operating from a quantum model of consciousness, where there is no good or bad. It's all energy. So he was able to transmute or transcend the duality that the people of the town who are stuck in a linear model of consciousness were operating from. It's a simplified way of explaining. There is no such thing as good or bad. It's all energy, because something that is really bad could turn out to be something really good the next day. Like, you could be so in love and you're like, oh my God, we're going to be together forever. And then you break up and you're miserable. And then you find somebody 10 times better a few months later. And you're like, thank God I broke up with that chick. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just... Our minds keep us stuck in duality and create all this suffering. So when we talk about the healing journey, an authentic healing journey is the transcendence of duality. I'm going to say that again. It's the transcendence of duality, because you're ending the trance that you're in. When I say that ending the trance, I make this joke. It's like most of humanity is stuck in duality. It's like we're at this nightclub and there's this really crappy music on, and everyone's like, so we're like, why are we dancing? It's like, everyone's miserable. Why are we dancing? So when we end the trance, this is a joke, we stop dancing, we start looking around like, why are we dancing to this terrible music? And then we finally transcend duality and we achieve self-realization. Okay, we start to achieve this self-actualization, and that takes the transcendence of duality, which is realizing this harmony of darkness and light, rather than being stuck and feeling separate from source, separate from the divine nature that is inherent within every single human being on earth, and that is accessed through our breath.
Totally. And the Chinese farmer story, kind of, I realized that the people the people in the village would see one action as being the end, but the Chinese farmer saw it as just a continuation, and that things go on. And whereas instead of seeing it as an end and right, that's the final act, so therefore it's good or bad, the Chinese farmer saw things as, well, that's just part of the continued story, and you never know what's going to come next, sort of thing. And you sort of take things like flow and on their merit, etc. But yeah, I do like that story. That's brilliant.
Well, I think I love to share people. It's like, because I'm coaching someone who's going through a divorce right now. I'm coaching somebody going through stage 4 cancer. I'm coaching somebody with an eating disorder, and I always tell people, this can be hard for our ego to acknowledge, is that sometimes our soul puts us through an experience. to discover who we're always meant to be.
Mm.
And that's not always easy for your ego to acknowledge. I've coached people who are sexually abused. Like, you mean that I put myself through this? It's like, I had an ex-girlfriend years ago. She was drugged and sexually abused. And then she turned into this coach that helped women who were sexually abused. So her trauma actually became an opportunity to help lots of people. And that's hard for our ego to acknowledge sometimes. But oftentimes, the darkest and most painful things that we've experienced were actually an experience that we needed to go through to achieve that self-actualization. And that's not always easy. That's why having community, having support, just like you doing this podcast, maybe somebody's going to hear this story that's going to help them through a dark time. Because when we're in our darkest times, our soul is healing the most, and your ego can't see it. Because like I said, it's like the roots of a tree. Why isn't the tree growing? Because the roots are growing. Calm down, bro. Like, I'm making it super simple. But like, that's really what this is all. That's why we need more community. We need more people coming together and having these conversations around the healing journey, because we all have it within us, but like, it's been suppressed, it's been repressed, it's been denied. This is why humanity is going through this dark night of the soul, because it's really about going through this shadow awakening process. I mean, like I said, like, that's the name of my book. When we acknowledge the darker parts of our psyche, we don't know our own beauty if we don't know our own ugliness. And when we find the ugliest parts of ourselves, that's the alchemical process. That's when we find the gold that's been inherent within us all along. And so the work that I do is help people to integrate those parts of themselves so they can achieve that self-actualization, heal the generational pain, love themselves authentically. And like, my whole vision is like, everyone I work with, you become like a drop of water. And you're creating this ripple effect in the lives of everybody around you. I was doing that years ago as a fitness coach. Now I'm doing it as a healer. And when I say healer, I'm just teaching other people how to heal. We all know how to heal. It's just remembering our power. We're all wizards, and then like that's what you guys are doing. You guys are just wizards, and you're teaching other people how to be wizards, right?
Totally. And there's more wizards than Merlin as well. That's
Indeed. We forgot our superpowers. We forgot our psychic abilities. So I love what you guys are doing with the psychic kitchen stuff, man. Like, the world is so ripe for change. We just got to get enough people to embody their soul, authentically love themselves, and then show up for each other, because we are so much more powerful than we think. The power is really in our bodies, in that powerful, dark, feminine space.
Totally. And you also do a free sort of a free workshop every month. Then do you still do one free workshop a month?
Third Thursday every month at 6 p.m. Pacific time. This month I'm doing the 5 spirits, which is based upon the 5 element theory. And then basically in the 5 spirits, there's a spirit associated with each of the elements. And like an example, if you drink too much, the spirit of the wood element or your liver, it would become imbalanced, and actually dark spirits would come in, and that creates disharmony within all your different organs. So the whole goal is to create harmony with the spirits within yourself in those 5 elements. So I have a full amazing presentation teaching that stuff. Basically what I teach in those presentations is all the stuff that we should have learned in school about how to heal ourselves. But I always tell people, like, our Western medical system is designed to make your health a commodity. So I tell people that I'm basically, what I do for a living is I sell your soul back to you. You've been giving it away. We're going to bring your soul back in, and then you'll have these skills to heal yourself. But yeah, the 5 spirits this month. Last month I did a Chinese face reading, and the month before that I did psychic self-defense. So I love teaching this stuff, man. It's just like I said, it's just so powerful to see people heal themselves. And then my online school, it's less than $100 a month to get access to it. I want to make it stupid affordable. When I work with people one-on-one, I charge a lot, but all my group stuff is affordable, because I will not accept the money when I can't afford it. It's like, anybody should be able to have the opportunity to heal themselves, but they also should be making some kind of investment so they take it seriously. But yeah, next month I'm doing the 5 spirits, 3rd Thursday. Every single month I do a free presentation.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome. You know a little bit about psychic protection, don't you, Thomas?
Yeah, I teach psychic protection all the time. I'm also an exorcist. So, yeah. See, I've been seeing demons and angels and all kinds of stuff since I've been a kid.
Yeah. Well, I often like to say, when we talk about demons, a lot of times what we call demons are just our suppressed emotions, because the more we suppress our emotions, I'm suppressing my anger, it's actually growing. And what we call a demon or a daemon, right? It's a part of yourself that you haven't acknowledged. And so when you get triggered, the anger comes out, And it's like you call it a demon, but it's really suppressed energy within your own psyche. So when we talk about like demons, so like part of it for each person is navigating our psyche, because when we actually face those demons, they're not actually demons, they're angels. And the word angel is kind of like the word angle, because you change the angle and that demon actually becomes an angel because you've integrated it back into your psyche. So there's different layers to that, but that's the way I like to frame it for people.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll see thought forms that people have formed around their minds.
Yes.
Stuff of that nature.
Yeah, we're creating our own demons. That's a lot of my teaching is like, it's like you can face those emotions. There's actually a phenomenal book that I teach. My mentor actually teaches. It's called Feeding Your Demons. It's based on an ancient Buddhist principle called chut. I'm always selling books, so don't judge me. It's another phenomenal book, and I teach that in my academy too. It's about instead of suppressing your demons, you face them and you feed them what they need, and then you integrate them, and then boom, now you're no longer suppressing the anger, the guilt, the shame, the sadness, those energies that are blocking you from your potential.
Right, definitely. Got any more questions, Thomas? I've got one more, but
I'm good. I'm good, brother.
Yeah. I was just wondering, just sort of to wrap things up, have you got any sort of a tip or a few tips that you could give people, just quick ones, and also do you want to sort of shout out what you've got coming up and, you know, remind us of where we can find you, etc.?
Yeah, well, my tip I would say is to let go.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let go and surrender. There's probably many people watching this right now who are clinging to a story that's actually blocking them from their potential. And so my tip is to let go, surrender, trust that the universe has your back. When you try to control the universe says, F you, and it's going to take you into some weird places. But if you trust the universe and realize that your body is connected to the universe and let go of control, magic will show up for you. And that's the space where the dark feminine is, when you start to integrate parts of yourself. So let go, surrender, and that's where the magic begins to happen. And you can check me out at alchemyhealingacademy.com. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I do regular videos to promote the work that I'm doing. And I have an online school. If you want to join my group coaching program, less than $100 a month. I do one-on-one coaching that costs a little bit more. And also, if you don't have that much money, my book's only $15 on Amazon. I will not accept people's money wounds or stories around wealth. So yeah, anybody can do this work. It just takes like an authentic introspection into wanting to heal yourself and love yourself. And I'm always willing to hop on a short call with anybody who needs support and guidance on their healing journey. So thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure chatting. Hopefully I inspired you guys, people that come on and listen. So drop some good wisdom.
Yeah, thank you, brother. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, it does. You're right. It does take work. It does take a lot of effort. But like you say, it takes effort to do nothing sometimes, doesn't it? Because we're so used to doing everything. It takes more work to do nothing sometimes than it does to do something. But yeah, no, thanks ever so much, Odysseus. It's been fabulous. And yeah. We shall say goodbye. We'll be on next week. If anyone wants to contact Odysseus, he's on his. I'll put his website on the screen there, alchemyhealingacademy.com. And thank you, everyone. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Toodaloo.
Au revoir.